All right, well, you already know what it is. It's another episode of eThought Conversations where we talk to people who are educational, who are entertaining, who are engaging, who are difference makers in this world. And I got another difference maker today. She is Crisette Ellis, a respected leader, entrepreneur, author, First Lady of Grady Grace Temple, alongside her husband, Bishop Charles H. Ellis III, my pastor, my First Lady. And she's dedicated her life to empowering others through her faith, her service, her purpose, and her journey of leadership and grace is marked by resilience and fueled her mission to help others finding healing, hope, and wholeness. She continues to impact lives with her poise. You'll see her grace, you'll see her compassion, you'll see her strength. None other than Chris Ellis. I want to welcome you to eThought Conversations.
Thank you, Pastor Eric, for bringing me on the eThought conversations. And it's always a joy to be in your presence. And I'm excited to be on your show. I finally made it.
Well, there's somewhat of a pecking order, but I got to start with the bishop, then work my way down. So, but you know, there's no slight. That's
No
all.
worries, no
No
worries at
worries.
all. I just made it. I'm
You
here.
you here, that's all that matters. You here, and I'm grateful. Listen, I want to get right into it. People oftentimes they see your smile, but they're unaware of all your trials and your scars. There was an impactful moment. You have a daughter who's in heaven, Kirsten,
Yes. Hmm.
and I want to share a moment with you because that moment at the homegoing, I never shared this, but it impacted my life. One, for you standing up, having the grace to speak at that moment was something all in itself. But when you told the moment about how when you were feeling low and Gladys Howard pulled you to the side and you said she spoke life into you and the way you resonated and communicated that, I sat in that moment up in that balcony at the Old Greater Grace and I said, I want to be like Gladys Howard. Somebody who was not title driven, just simply spoke a word and spoke life into you. Talk about that season in your life and how you got through that season and what did it add? Where are you now with that?
Wow. Well, and that's been, so many years ago. Kirsten would be, Buddy is 33. So she would be getting ready to turn 33 because they literally would have been 10 months apart. So she was kind of an unexpected pregnancy. I really just thought I was going to have two children. And so, with my first two children, everything was fine. And you kind of envision your life, at least I did growing up. I knew eventually I would get married. Eventually I would have a family. And never in a million years did I factor in that I would have a child that was born, less than perfect or with a disease or having a life-threatening disease at that. I would have never imagined that. And so, when we found out that that I was pregnant for only 10 months from Buddy was 10 months at the time, that was a shocker, but that was fine. And they did, because I was a little bit older, they did, the amniocentesis, and it came back, oh, baby's not gonna be Down syndrome, all the basic things that a child that, if they see a little something, they do that, they test it and they say, oh, no, you're fine, no worries. And so because we had that done, of course, I thought everything was fine. Well, let me
Mhm.
just kind of fast forward, and Kirsten was due later in June. And because she was due later in June, and most of the time, the children aren't necessarily born on their due date. My husband was out of town at the time. He was ministering somewhere else. And so anyway, I went into labor. My sister and my brother-in-law took me to the hospital, and I had Kirsten, and Chuck was not there because he was out of town. Well, I remember them taking her right away, and I was kind of shocked, but not really. And so, she was out for a long time. So finally, the doctor came in to deliver, to me like a death sentence. And I
Mm,
always say, I know that God gives us doctors and they're important, but it's something about having a doctor that has that grace, that bedside manner that can speak life, give you a little bit of hope. I mean, literally, this doctor came in, and I want to say it was a male. And he just like, "Oh, she has epidermolysis bullosa, a long name, something that we had never heard of before." And the reason they didn't pick it up when I did the test is because it's so rare. It's like 1 in a million. So that test that they gave me, they would have never tested for that because that's it's so uncommon that they didn't test for that. So he told me what she had and that, oh, she has an acute form, so she might not live for 3 months and so on and so forth. And so of course, I was sitting in that room by myself, having received the worst message that you could ever receive, having a brand new baby. And I will be totally transparent and honest. I had a moment of, I can't believe this is happening to me. Of course, the tears came. I was upset. And literally, I would say I was upset with God that God would do that to me. I was raised in the church. I started really kind of giving God you know, my background and, this happens to other people, but it shouldn't happen to me. I've been a good girl. I've been a good Christian. I've tried to follow all the rules and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And literally, as I was having this conversation in my heart, and mind with the Lord, the Holy Spirit literally, and I know it was God, came in. And that's the beautiful thing about the Holy Spirit. It doesn't beat you up, doesn't hit you upside the head. And it just came back and it literally, we started having a conversation. And the conversation went something like, what is so special about you that some rain shouldn't fall in your life? I mean, what makes you different from all the millions of individuals who have had things bad things that happened to them. And then I was thinking, I was like, yeah. And then it went on to say, when you had Kiara, she was born healthy and normal, and someone else had a baby that was born a stillborn baby. So you need to thank me for that. And 2 years later, you had a healthy son, Charles, that was born, and somebody else at the hospital had a baby born with Down syndrome. You should give me praise for that. And so as the conversation, in my head with God was going, it literally came down to, in all things give thanks to God, for it's the will of God for you in Christ Jesus. And literally, I mean, the Holy Spirit just was ministering to me. And so it made me really grow up and mature more. And I thought I was this mature Christian. And then I realized you're not as mature as you think you are, because you still think that because of your righteousness in your eyes, that you should tiptoe through the tulips and nothing bad is going to happen to you. And so it happened. And so you just get to the place where you have to accept it. And it was absolutely a journey. I mean, I don't think Kirsten came home for like 6 weeks or whatever. We had to go to the hospital. We had to go through all this training of how to handle her because her skin was so fragile and anything could cause her to blister. And if she got a blister, they had to teach us how to burst the blister and then how to wrap her. And sometimes blood was involved. And Eric, I can remember this one day specifically. I was at home and I had her, and I think I was changing a bandage and what it is because when a child has epidermolysis bullosa, it's like they're burned. So if you can imagine burn victims and how you have to put salve on and wrap their arms and the blisters and you have to, take care. So somebody seeing her would think, either was she abused or, what happened because it was, in different places of her body. And so I remember as I was changing her, I was just, standing on faith. And I remember thinking, looking up at the ceiling saying, God, you said you would never put more on us than we could bear. And then I kind of choked and said, you must think I'm a bad mama jamma to put this on me because this is a whole lot. But what I will say is that the Bible says it's a good thing that I have been tested and I have been trialed because I get to know God at a higher level. And even in that, I remember, praying and asking God for certain things. And God showed up in the midst of, and I apologize for
That's
my
just
dog.
Barkley barking. He okay.
Okay. Uh, in the midst of all of this, there were times where he would show up because I prayed for something and he would show up and he would, you know, make it smooth and make it I remember, saying, man, this I had just joined Mary Kay and was, having great success. And I had people that said to me, oh, you're gonna have to stop that because you got to spend all your time taking care of your daughter and so on and so forth. And to be honest, they weren't doing it to discourage me. They thought they were trying to help me. But you got to be very careful when your faith is one place and somebody else's faith is somewhere else. And I remember thinking, I said, well, if I have faith that God is going to heal my daughter, whatever that looks like, to me, it means that I would act as if she was normal. So if Kirsten was born normal, then I wouldn't quit Mary Kay. I would continue to operate,
Mhm.
live my life like a normal person. If I have faith and we walk by faith and not by sight. So by faith, she's healed. By faith, my household is normal. So that means I still get to go on vacations. That means I get to build my business. And so I said, okay, well, God, I need to find someone that can help me take care of Kirsten. I didn't want to just have a home nurse that came in that really didn't know her. And God sent the person I had lost contact with. And just one event we went to, there she was. And I was like, oh my goodness, Sister Dean. I said, I didn't have your number. I hadn't seen her at church in months. And I said, I need to talk to you and ask you if you would be willing to watch my daughter. So I called her up and we started talking and I told her, I said, now, Sister Dean, it's a special case. I told her the disease. I told her everything she would have to deal with. And this is exactly what she said. She and her husband were having problems. She was from Chicago. She said, Crisette, she said, I literally was getting ready to move back to Chicago because my husband and I were, not getting along. I'm going to move back to where my children are. And I was leaving and going to Chicago. She said, but you know what? She said, now you've given me a purpose, a reason to stay. And she said, when my mother had my younger sister, she was born with some kind of disease that there was blood involved. And she said, my mother couldn't handle it. So I had to take care of my sister. She said, so that doesn't bother me at all. She said, you just don't know. You saved my life. I'm so thankful that you asked me to be Kirsten's caretaker. To the point where when her daughter got pregnant, she named her granddaughter Kirsten.
Wow. Look at God. So, let me ask you a question. Have you and God reconciled that whole season in your life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing about God is that he knows that we are human. He knows, I mean, Jesus wept when Lazarus died, even though he knew he was going to resurrect him. So what's the point? Why are you crying when you're getting ready to bring him back to life? But he wanted to mirror to us that he can be touched by the feelings of our infirmities, by our emotions, our pain. So I just think how awesome it is that we serve a God that knows our failures, our flaws, knows when we hurt, knows that we're not going to hit the mark all the time. We're going to doubt. And you say, God, help my unbelief. And he's like, okay, I'm going to help you. And so I can look back. I believe it was Pastor Claudette Copeland who said, life is perceived going forward, but it's understood looking backwards. So I can look back over that
Mhm.
time and understand that it had a greater purpose, a greater reason. It was meant to be a part of my story. I always say, we don't get an opportunity to tell God where to test us, how to test us, the kind of test that we would go through. I would go through the one where, you eat too many sweets and your stomach get upset. You take some Pepto-Bismol and you're straight. Okay? That would be it would be the easiest, I can
Right.
handle it in my sleep kinda test, but nobody signs up for the "Give me cancer so I can talk about how you can heal from cancer." None of us would do that. So God does not allow us to pick and choose what our test is going to be. And at the end of the day, if you really believe what God says, the word said he never puts more on us than we can bear. And so if whatever situation you're in, you can bear it, but it has a greater purpose. And the last thing I will say, just to talk about that purpose, I remember, and this was early on in my Mary Kay career, I was doing extremely well. So different nationals, which is the highest level in Mary Kay, they would call, those directors that were doing really well, they would have retreats and they wanted you to be a part of their retreat, share your story, motivate and inspire, the people in their area. And so National Sales Director Joyce Grady called me up and she wanted me to come because I earned my pink Cadillac, had done all of these wonderful things in a short period of time. So she flew me in, put me in this beautiful, hotel room. I was like, wow, it felt really, really good. I was like, ooh, somebody's paying for me to fly in and put me up in a great hotel. And so she wanted me on one evening. I was going to get up and we call it Mary Kay your I story. And that's just basically how you got involved with Mary Kay and how you moved, to the position that you're in. And so I was thinking about it. So I remember in my mind, in that room by myself saying, okay, I'm going to talk about my story, but I'm not going to talk about Kirsten. I said, because I don't want to get on stage in front of all these people and break down crying. And a lot of that was my pride. I was like, I'm not getting up there, need tissue, and I can't hardly talk, and I'm crying and all this. I said, so I'm going to kind of skip that part of the story and just talk about how I build and what I did and so on and so forth. And Pastor Eric, I promise you, still small voice said, no, you're going to talk about that. And I mean, me and God have a friendship. We go back and forth. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I said, because I don't feel like I'm at a place where I could talk about it without breaking down. I said, and I don't want to get up there and then everybody's feeling so sorry for me and they want to come and give me a big hug. I am not doing it. And the spirit said, you're going to do it. Because if you don't do it, I'll give you something else and you'll be running to do it. Exactly. I was like, huh? I was like, nothing, because at this point, she had passed, okay?
Mhm.
So Kirsten had passed, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh, no, I don't want anything worse than that." So the day of the event, fine, I get up and I'm sharing my story, and so I started and so I remember saying to the Lord, "Okay, Jesus, I hear you." I said, "I'm gonna tell my story, but just one thing, don't let me do the ugly cry. Please don't let it be that ugly cry." And so I got up, I was sharing my story, and yeah, I did get a little emotional, but it wasn't, this big blown out where everybody felt like they had to come and get me. And so I shared it and got through it and it was fine. And this was when I had the aha moment. So after everything was over, and of course, the speaker, people down front to greet you, I can't tell you how long the line was. So many women came up to me and some of them were crying. Some of them were like doing the ugly cry that I didn't want to do because they had children that had Down syndrome, all different ailments. And they were vacillating between should they stay in their business or should they quit their business to be full time at home with their child. And they were saying to me how much freedom I gave them when I told them, even though Kirsten had her disease, I was still able to build a great business. But I did it with the help of the Lord because I trusted him. I believe he blessed me every step of the way with my business. And they were so thankful that I shared my story and they could relate to it because many of them, their children were still alive and they were, vacillating between, I want my Mary Kay business, but I need to be at home with my child. What do I do? And so that's when the aha moment, the light bulb moment came up for me. And I said, you know what? This was to help other people. And that this is not something that many of us are unfamiliar with. Many times you go through a test and trial, yes, to learn something personally, but many times is to be a blessing to other people, whether they are living right now or whether they're going to come in the future. You just don't know that God allows you to go through things so that you can help somebody else that is going to experience that thing. It's one thing to sympathize, but it's another to empathize. So when women come to me whose children, have been born with this disease or that disease, I can relate to them. Even if, God chooses to heal them and they end up passing, I can relate to them. But if that never happened to me, all I could do is pray for you and hope that you feel better. But I understand the emotions that, talking about it and seeing pictures, I can understand all of that because as they say, until you walk in my moccasins, don't judge me. But because I've walked in those moccasins, I absolutely can relate to women and families that go through the loss of a child and even a child that's born with a disease.
You said something, I gotta revisit that. Well, only God knows how to bring that purpose out of pain, number 1. You said you've had to treat it as normal. How did you find the balance? What does the balance look for that lady that's in your situation? How does she manage family and career?
And all of that. Well, again, I said, if I'm going to trust God and faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So even though I was changing Kirsten's bandages, even though we were going to doctor's appointment, and I'll tell you this, we took Kirsten on a flight. We went to New York to a specialist, John Hopkins Hospital, to see if it was some new technique or medicine or whatever. And it was right in the midst of me working to earn my pink Cadillac. And this was before cell phones and all of that. And I remember the doctors, took Kirsten away and they said, you guys have a couple hours because they were running all of these tests. And I needed a phone and I had a regular landline. I had all of my work with me. I got a phone. I was still calling consultants. And and this is the thing, when you're operating in that kind of faith, sometimes people don't understand it because they think that you should be in the corner crying, in a corner paralyzed, in a corner saying, woe is me. Oh, I can't believe this is my life. You can do that. But I chose to, you know what? The doctors got her. They don't want us in there with them. We're in New York. Let me be about my business. And I did. And I literally won my pink Cadillac in New York at John Hopkins Hospital, working my business while the doctors were working on Kirsten. That was, God gave me the grace for it and he gave me the faith for it. So what would I say to a woman who, is an entrepreneur or a woman that's working, has a career and she's being challenged? And, maybe the challenge is, with her child that was born with, a disease or whatever the case may be. The first thing is knowing that God has not forsaken you. He didn't do this because he doesn't love you. He didn't do this to punish you or whatever. He did this in his divine wisdom. He knows how to take the good, the bad, and the ugly and make it come out to work for your good. So that's a trust level. Number two is, you have to be in prayer and you have to tell God what you want. He knew I wanted to continue my business. And I said, God, if I'm to continue my business, this is what I need. And every step of the way, he showed me that he was with me because I trusted him, and because I trusted him, he sent me the help that I needed, right? My husband was on board. He wasn't like, you need to quit that business and just concentrate on Kirsten. No, I mean, literally everything that I needed, it worked out. Now, let me be crystal clear. I don't want anybody to think I didn't have moments where I still cried, that I didn't have moments where it's like, why is this happening to me? I can say I can be like Elijah. Elijah, called down fire from heaven. He killed all of the prophets of Baal and all of that, did some awesome things. And then Jezebel said, I'm coming for you, I'm killing you. And he ran and he held in the mountain. So you can have faith today like this, and tomorrow find yourself here. But it's okay because we are human. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that, oh, First Lady Ellis, she was, she had faith in God and she was on the mountaintop all the time. No, no. But I will say I was on the mountaintop enough of the time to be able to succeed in business. And so, yes, you will have those moments where, you're sad or you're like, man, I wish this and I wish that. But if that's not what God had in your future and in your life, you have to learn how to accept it and know that God is going to God is going to order your steps and God is going to help you make it through whatever that challenge looks like.
That's why in a funny way, I don't like you because you allow God to hijack this whole conversation and and just I think but you just help somebody. You just help somebody heal. You just gave them hope. You just gave them wholeness. And that's what this is all about. It's about making a difference in this world. On the funny side, how do you classify yourself as a preacher, teacher, encourager, prophet, pastor?
Look,
Well, it
all of
flows out of you so easily.
that, all
Bishop.
I don't know about that, but all of that, I heard Bishop T.D. Jakes say one time, and I think he said it when he came to our church on one occasion. He said, "Never let someone put a period by your name when God intended a comma." And so, you know what? God has made me full of capacity to do a whole lot, and God graces you for, the capacity that He gives you. And this is the thing, when I was younger, like, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. But at the end of the day, new levels, new devils. In order for you to go to another level, it's always a trying in the fire. It's always comes with, challenges, obstacles, tears. There's almost no story in the Bible that you read about where God said, okay, Moses, go and deliver the children of Israel. He said, okay, God, I'm going to do it. He goes there and it's over. That's maybe one chapter.
40
That's not,
years on the backside of the desert.
that's
Now
exactly.
you're ready.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
32 years with Mary Kay. Is that correct?
Correct.
How many years as a national?
As a national sales director, 22 years.
22 years. Speak
22.
because we out of time, so I'm gonna have to have you back for the leadership portion of it
Okay.
because
No worries.
it was just that good. But give me your leadership success principles that has helped you aspire to the youngest African American national sales director in the state of Michigan.
Well, what I will say, first of all, is you have to absolutely take God as your business partner, okay? Because you can't do anything without, to me, having God right there. So having faith that if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Number two, I think it's very important to have a vision. A vision sets some goals for what you want to do. My husband will tell you, I had goal posters. I need to get back to it. Old
Mhm.
school is the best school sometimes, but I had my goals written right there in front of me. They were plastered on the wall. They were in the bathroom where when I brushed my teeth, I could read them, write the vision and make it plain. And so I did that. I think it's important who you're hanging around. If you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. If you're hanging around with the naysayers, nobody's ever done it. I'm broke. I'm broke too. I'm this. I'm too. No, I'm so thankful that God placed me in the space of we call them AWW, anointed winning women. Okay. Women who want more, women who are willing to go out there and I'm sorry, ambitious winning women. okay, who are willing to go out there and do the work. So I think that's very important. And then you got to pull up your sleeves and you have to work. And I want to come back because, some people think I was successful because you went to that big old church, Greater Grace. But what they don't understand is when I became a Mary Kay consultant, my husband was not the pastor. He was just one of the associate ministers. My father-in-law was the pastor, and I did not grow up at Greater Grace. I came to Greater Grace. People didn't know me. I built my business out in the streets. I met people in the grocery store. I met people at the mall. I met people while we're at dinner. I literally hit the streets and built my business with people that I didn't know. Yes, there were people on my team I knew, but you didn't see 15 pink Cadillacs at Greater Grace. You didn't, because I did not build my business off of Greater Grace. I built my business out in the street. And that's so important because people will think she's successful. You could be successful. I could be successful if I went to a big old church like that. Not necessarily, because I didn't build my business because I went to a big old church.
Absolutely, absolutely amazing. There's a part two. So you coming back for part two because we got to talk
Part two.
about leadership principles, success principles, and strategy. I love that goal setting, write the vision, make it plain, all of that good stuff. Where can people find you, get in contact with you, etc.?
Excellent. Well, I'm actually revamping my website, which is going to be Crisette.com. But in the meanwhile, they can reach out to me in via email while we're working on revamping my website. And it's the number one. N is in Nancy, S is in Sam, D is in David, Crisette@gmail.com. Or the easiest way is called Greater Grace Temple and ask for Dana Felton, and she can connect you to me. So that by the time we have our second um,
Yes.
session,
Conversation.
our website conversation, and we can put that out there then.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, how has being a grandparent changed your life?
Oh my gosh, people used to tell me you don't know love until you become a grandparent. And I was like, "Oh, okay." You love your children, you love your spouse. You're like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And I am here to tell you they are absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, the milkman, he comes to our house every Wednesday and he spends the night. Matter of fact, my children are going out of town, so we're on double duty. We're gonna have both of them tomorrow. Okay. So anybody that's watching this, please say a prayer for me and my husband. Please say a prayer for us.
And your granddaughter had carries your middle name. Just her middle name
Yeah.
carries your first
Oh,
name.
let's be clear. My daughter Kiera had brought us the most beautiful granddaughter, Chloe, with the best middle name ever, Crisette. And it's just such a joy to have both a boy and a girl. And we're just so excited about Chloe because we're watching her grow and just can't wait for her to get to the stage where, she's talking a little bit and she starts walking. And, right now, Milkman is giving us all the drama. And Chloe is sitting back saying, "Oh, just wait. If you think he's you content, wait. I got something for you."
Very good. Thank you so much. I do this thing before we go. I'm gonna do this thing. It's called first thoughts, and I want the first thought to come to your mind. I'm gonna give you a choice. You choose one, and then after that, I'll give you closing remarks, and then we're done. So, your first thought: beach or mountains?
Oh, beach or mountain? I'm going to take the mountains.
Wow. Okay. Good. Okay. Dinner
But
and a
wait,
movie. Go
can
ahead.
I say this? I know it's the first thought. I would probably take the mountains, but if I was going to live, if you asked me, would I want to live where I could see the mountains or would I want to live where I was looking at water? It would be water.
Okay.
Okay. So I
Uh,
just need to clean that up.
Let me say your first thought. No explanation needed. It's your first thought. It's yours. You own it. Dinner and a movie or Netflix and chill.
Dinner or
Dinner
a
and a
movie.
movie or Netflix and chill.
dinner or movie. Um,
First thought. You
Netflix
gotta think about it.
Netflix and chill.
Okay. Winter, spring, summer, or fall?
Summer,
Summer, okay. Coffee or tea?
coffee.
Okay. Flowers or candy?
Ooh, flowers,
Flowers, okay. Gift cards or gifts?
gift cards, 'cause you can control it.
You've had enough over your lifetime. You'd be like, "Oh, thank you." Okay. Just come on. Road trip or flight?
Mm, I wanna say road trip,
Okay. Ebook or physical book?
physical book,
Movie or TV series?
movie.
Airbnb or hotel?
Mm, hotel.
Now Imma get you in trouble. Winans or commission?
Oh, really?
Yeah, come on, first thought.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to say, oh, I'm gonna say commission with an asterisk because I grew up with a lot of them.
Okay. Um, Mary or the Clark sisters?
You know what, Eric?
I'm
You
just
need to
saying.
stop. Uh, oh my gosh. Okay, Mary, Mary. I'm gonna say Mary, Mary.
Okay. Um, Avon or Mary Kay?
Mary Kay, hands down.
And what's the best country you visited? Because you go out of the country every year on Mary Kay sponsored trip, and why?
Oh, I'm gonna say Europe. And Greece would be my favorite.
Mm, okay. Well, that's all I got. Thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. I know it's going to help. I know it's going to hope. I know it's going to heal. Leave us with some closing thoughts, and then we're done.
Awesome. Well, just based on the conversation that we had on today, my closing thoughts would be to anyone that's being challenged in their life, whether it is like me, having a child that was born with health challenges that lived for 10 months and passed, or maybe it's, some other area in your life where you're challenged. Just understand that it may have surprised you, but it didn't surprise God. And if God allowed it to come into your life, there's always a bigger purpose. You don't necessarily know what the purpose is now, but as the word says, be not weary in well doing, for in due season you'll reap if you faint not. So this is not the time to faint. This is the time to give thanks for God, for whatever it is, because it's the will of God concerning you in Christ Jesus. And one day you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I understand the purpose for my pain. And now you can take that pain and make it into a gain, because not only will it bless you, it will also bless others, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of our testimony.
You heard it here on eThought Conversations. Lady Crisette, we call her first. Now you know why we call her first, because she's second to none. And we thank you for joining again on eThought Conversations. Like, comment, share. My eThought is you weren't born to quit. You weren't created to lose. So until you win, that's when you quit. That's my eThought for today. As always, have an amazing day. Thank you for joining eThought Conversations.